What we hear the term generational wealth all the time. I even said it at the beginning, right? It's one of those catchwords or catchphrases that people say a lot. What does that mean to you?
I think generational wealth is really when people use that terminology, they're trying to create their own legacy, basically, to pass down to their family. And that might look different for farmers. It might look different for folks who are in the banking industry. It might look different for people who are entertainers. There's professional athletes. There's a lot of different clientele that I have that are working on providing some generational wealth because they would like to be able to provide for their families all the way down the line, even after they're gone. There are, a lot of great things about being able to do that, and what a gift to be able to leave to someone. But it is also some things that should come with some requirements, and that's where they need their estate planning attorney to not just be able to have that money and end up not having to pursue education or a career, because then they have a lot of idle time on their hands, and sometimes they find themselves in problematic situations with drugs or alcohol that they ordinarily wouldn't have been able to come into had this not been provided. So, as my grandmother would say, be careful what you wish for. So when we talk about generational wealth, I always like to make sure that everyone knows, don't create a situation for a great grandchild down the road that is going to be hurtful for them. You can put some things in your trust that establish some requirements for them to have access to funds, and to maybe not have it in large lump sums, maybe have it, doled out monthly or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. What does generational wealth mean to you?
Yeah, so in the estate planning context, when I have a client that is either creating or already has generational wealth that we're dealing with, we're typically looking at two things. One is we're trying to make sure that Uncle Sam doesn't collect a lot of that money upon their death, that we do some estate tax planning. And then two, it's what I sort of tongue in cheek call control from the grave, is okay, what can we do to ensure that when you're gone, we've created this legacy for your children, your grandchildren, your great grandchildren. And that's through the things that Kim was talking about, and putting these parameters in place and controlling from the grave as to how that money is doled out.
There was actually this show that I just saw recently about a topic of passing away, a parent passing away, and putting all kinds of restrictions on how, like, they can't have the money if they marry into this family, or if they're gay, or if,
Oh, wow.
set all of these rules down. If that ever happens and is in place, is that there's nothing to override that if it's outlined like.
There's things that you can't do that are just against public policy, but for the most part, it's your trust, it's your money, it can be your rules. I go through it in a lot of detail to talk about, you think it's an easy rule, but number one, who's going to enforce that rule? What are some other consequences of the rule? So hopefully by the time we're done and we have a final product, it's a thoughtful thing, and it's something that can actually be implemented down the road.
When someone is setting up their baseline of protections for when they pass, you already spoke on the will being the one document that people think should really be, that's the end all be all. I have a will. What is something that they should really think about that can right out the gate help them more than they think, more than they would even know about?
Their power of attorney for finances and their healthcare documents, so that if they're ever in a situation, like I have a 47-year-old client who had a stroke, for example, he did not have those documents in place at the time. So his wife had to go and get a guardianship in place. So she had to go to court, pay a lawyer money to be named her husband's guardian so that she could make financial decisions for him. So for me, those two documents, no matter how old you are, no matter what your wealth status is, those two documents are vital.
So marital status doesn't automatically give someone the power to.
Absolutely not.
Interesting. What about for you?
Well, I'll share something that happened about 25 years ago when I hadn't been in practice very long, maybe 5 or 6 years I had been in practice, and I had a young couple. They were both physicians. They had a 4-year-old child, and they were killed in an automobile accident, and the 4-year-old was left orphaned. And in all of our chit chats over those 4 years, we had discussed designating a guardian for the child, because that's an important part. When someone has children, they need to have that established. When they're in my office, that's one of the first things I'm asking them. He liked his sister and hated hers, and she liked her sister and hated his, and they couldn't come to an agreement. And of course, you hope that you never need it, but it turns out they needed it. So because they died accidentally, their life insurance proceeds were double indemnity. So she came with several $1,000,000, the 4-year-old child did. And the person who ended up becoming her guardian was someone I'd never heard of, who lived several states away. And really, ultimately, the person who had the best attorney is I will say this happened. And so, I don't say this to scare people, but she left the funeral of her parents and went straight into foster care because everyone in the family agreed that she might bond with them if someone took her home, and that over the 6 months it might take to settle the estate, that it might then favor the judge to not take her away from this new family she has had. So she spent all that time in foster care. She went from the funeral to foster care. That you can't do that. If you're a parent, you've got to at least, at the most bare bones minimum, establish a guardian. It's really important.
Good information.